Explain to me why we have a Ministry for Local Government, and it used to be Rural Development, and then there's also Decentralization. And yet we need an IMCC.
So what I would say is that the IMCC plays an intersectoral role. Now, when we did the root and branch review of our local governance architecture somewhere 2009, 2010, it was determined that we were not moving. We had been implementing decentralization reforms since 1988, under Rawlings, which that's with PNDC Law 207. Then we came to the Act 462, the old local governance law. Now, by 2010, 2009, 2010, we had been implementing decentralization for about 20 years. And when seeing the dividends, the aspirations of the Blue Book, the issue of power to the people, that the people take ownership of development in the spaces where they live, when seeing that. So when we did the review, it was determined that power struggles, turf wars, contributed. And then also the co-equal nature of the minister who was driving decentralization efforts also created a situation. So Professor Hoy, for instance, he's the longest serving minister for local governance in Ghana, right? He was there for 12 years, but the aspirations were not achieved as the Constitution envisages, so, because when you look at Articles 35(6)(d), that's under the directive principles. This is huge, that under the directive principles, we place decentralization there. It says that we would decentralize the administrative and financial mechanism of government to the districts and the regions, right? Now, and create every opportunity for each Ghanaian to be able to contribute to the decision-making processes at all levels of government. So it's quite huge. And then we have an entire chapter in the Constitution, chapter 20, on decentralization and local governance. So you can tell that this is quite critical in the minds of the fathers, yes, or the framers of the Constitution. They determined that this was the approach to go if we wanted sustainable, holistic development that is people-centered, right? Unfortunately, as of the time that we did the review, it was determined that we weren't because of some of the challenges that I highlighted. And so the decision then was taken to scope around for any best practices on improving, how we coordinate decentralization. And we found this example where we then came up with the idea of the IMCC, an intersectoral, a supra body seated above the ministers, right, with the president himself in charge. That then, almost like if you are not playing ball, the president can strip you in line to say. And the president was doing that. President Mama, under Professor Mills, was given the mandate to lead or to chair the IMCC by Professor Mills. And he loved the concept so much that when he became president, he thought that, look, we needed the elevation, so he would chair it himself. And when we elevated the issues, or we escalated the issues to the IMCC, and he chairs, you ask the minister, I mean, you've heard the report. Why is this? And he gives them 2 weeks. I'm giving you 2 weeks. I'm giving you by the next meeting of the IMCC, we should have a report of good progress. So we actually made significant progress in Mahama 1. In fact, from Professor Mills to Mahama 1, we made significant progress. If I tell you, in the area of fiscal decentralization, we have something we call composite budgeting. It had been on the drawing board for 20 years, that people plan, and then there's no budget. The principle of fiscal decentralization is that funds must follow functions. But because we didn't have this composite budget process that would take planning, translate it into a budget, and then the Minister for Finance can then release the finances, there was that backlog of,
So I'd like to explain financial decentralization more.
Yeah.
But I want